Today I want to talk about the singer Jim Morrison. Of the many great singers in the world, Jim Morrison is one of the greatest of all time. Rolling Stone magazine ranked Jim Morrison number 47 on their list of the 100 greatest singers of all time. Jim Morrison is one of the most legendary frontmen in the history of rock music. He's the man that's recognized for introducing the new style of rock music and helping give birth to the generation known as the counterculture. The counterculture was a time of change and rebellion in our country. People in our society rebelled a lot against our government. And one of the reasons that caused this was the use of drugs. And at the time, during the late 60s, Jim Morrison was the poster child for this drug use. It ate up his whole life. Drugs did. He had a real bad problem with drugs and alcohol. Morrison had a successful career in the music business, and Jim Morrison continues to make an impact today on our culture. Now, first I'm going to tell you about his life. Jim Morrison lived a strange and controversial life. He was born on December 8, 1943 in Melbourne, Florida. He was born into a military family, so he moved around a lot. In 1964, Morrison moved to California to attend the school of UCLA. There he received a degree in filmmaking. Also there in California, he worked for an underground newspaper called the Los Angeles Free Press. Like I said earlier, Morrison had a real bad addiction to drugs. All he did was do drugs, and to him he found happiness through using drugs. He felt that his life was unfulfilled and depressing, and at the time he was just wrapped around the counterculture, which would ultimately lead to his death. Now I'm going to tell you about the career of Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison, he had a very successful career in the music industry. He started the legendary rock band The Doors with fellow UCLA student Tony Manzarek. Soon after, guitarist Robbie Krieger and drummer John Densmore joined the group. During their 5 years together, from 1965 to 1970, they produced 5 studio albums, and from these albums, some of the greatest songs ever written can be heard. Some chart-topping hits include Break On Through, Moonlight Drive, Light My Fire, LA Women, Strange Days in the End. Jim Morrison was the singer and songwriter for The Doors. The Doors were introduced to the country on the Ed Sullivan Show. This was where The Doors became an overnight success when, while singing one of their songs, they weren't supposed to sing a certain lyric, and Jim Morrison did it anyways, which has caused a lot of controversy. But at this point in time, it didn't matter because The Doors were a must-see attraction. And all across the country, they sold out venues everywhere they went from 1965 to 1970. But towards the end, like the old saying, all good things come to an end, Morrison tried to start a riot at a concert one night. And from using drugs, that's why he started this riot. And it led to his arrest. So in 1970, he decided to get away from it all, and he moved to Paris, France, so he could write a book and focus more on his poetry. He ended up dying on July 3rd, 1971. They found him dead in his apartment from a drug overdose. His girlfriend, Kirsten, said that he died of an overdose of heroin. He bled to death from a hemorrhage. Morrison is part of an unfortunate group called the 27 Club that consists of himself, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and Janis Joplin. These young singers died at the age of 27 from a drug overdose. Now I'm going to tell you about his impact. Jim Morrison had a huge influence and impact on our culture. The music that you hear today can be traced back all the way to the Doors, to the Who, to Janis Joplin, to the Grateful Dead. They really helped bring in this new style of music. Jim Morrison can be remembered from that classic 1991 film directed by Oliver Stone, The Doors. This movie was to commemorate the death of Jim Morrison. At the time, it was the 20th anniversary. The movie focuses on the trials and tribulations of the rock band The Doors. It shows their success as a group and the demise of the band when they fell apart in 1970. It has great actor Val Kilmer and actress Meg Ryan. So, in conclusion, Jim Morrison is one of the greatest singers of all time. He helped pave the way for the new generation of rock music. Morrison lived a short yet legendary life as an original rock star. So since this is the 40th anniversary of his death, I hope we can remember the man known as Jim Morrison. Morrison once said that there are things known and things unknown, and in between are the doors.